When I hear the question, isn't being good good enough? And I hear it a lot. We have to ask the question about good. Now, if you listen to how could a loving God send people to hell, one of the other questions in this video series, you're going to get a little bit of repeat here. But when we talk about good and bad, being good or being a bad person or being a good person, what we're really looking at, we could argue all day over how good is good and how bad is bad and all of that. But good and bad are not what is going to be the difference maker in whether or not we are able to truly be in perfection with God. Now, good and bad matter. The Bible says if we sow to the sinful nature, we reap destruction. And if we sow to the Spirit, we reap life. In other words, our actions have consequences. They have big consequences. They have consequences for our life, for our family, for the world around us. Good and bad matter. But when it comes down to will we be in heaven and will we be in the presence of God, it's a whole lot bigger than just good or bad, because I can guarantee you there won't be a single person in the presence of God for eternity that doesn't have a truckload of sin in their life as they walked on this planet. Every one of us sin. And some of us sin more than others, but there isn't going to be a single person that can stand in heaven with clean hands. Just not going to happen. But what is going to be the difference maker is not how much or how little sin we had. That's going to have a lot of consequences in certain realms. But ultimately it comes down to, are we willing for God to be God, or do I want to take control of my life? In the garden, when mankind fell, we have to look and go, the thing that was offered to them is, do you want to be in control of your life, or do you want God to be in control of your life? And at that point, God said, now they have become like us, knowing both good and evil, knowing both rebellion and obedience. And He said, we are going to allow that to continue because we cannot have perfection if people don't truly know both. Completely know what health and life can be, and also understand fully what sin does and where it comes. And we are walking through that right now. The Bible describes this life as a crucible where something precious like gold or silver is heated to this really, really high temperature so that the imperfections, the dross as it's called, rises to the surface and can be skinned off, and what's left is perfect. And He said this world is doing that. It's showing us both good and evil, and we're having to struggle with good and evil as we're here. But heaven won't be perfect because God doesn't allow it anymore. Heaven won't be perfect because only perfect people are there. A whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of sin are going to be there, every single one of us. Heaven will be perfect because of this. For every single one of us, if we are willing for God to be God, because we realize He wants better for us than we could ever want for our own selves, that God's best is better than our best, and every time we link with His best, we get something better than we could produce for ourselves, then without ever violating our free will, I choose to let Him be in control. He does a better job than I do. He creates a better health than I could create for myself. Now, if I truly believe that and I'm willing to do that, and my wife is also willing to do that, instantly we come into perfect unity with each other. Now, I would love to tell you that my wife and I are in perfect unity now. We're not. Our free wills bang into each other all the time. We can't create a perfect marriage no matter how bad we want it. But if we were able to perfectly hear the voice of God and follow it without ever violating our free will because we believe that He wants better for us than we could ever selfishly want for ourselves, taking that lead, we come into unity. What if my kids did that? What if my mother-in-law did that? What if my boss did that? What if the guy that I have always struggled with on this planet had that exact same passionate commitment? All of us would come into complete unity. That's the reason heaven will not be offered because I'm good or I'm bad or I had a lot of sin or a little sin or more sin than the guy next to me or less sin than the one that was in prison most of his life. It's going to come down to, am I willing for God to be God, or do I want to be God? And if I want to be God, I'm not going to be able to have Him be God. Now, when we talked about would God send people to hell, the reality is we get to choose. It's our free will. Do we want Him to be the Lord? And if we do, then we can enter into that perfection. If we don't, then He'll give us what we want, the ability to not be in His presence and not have any of His control. The Bible describes that as hell, to be out of the presence of the living God and to be where none of His presence is. But we get to choose. Our choice. Do we want Him to be God or do we want to be God? Now, hopefully that helps you with that question. May raise more questions. We always understand that we can't say everything that everybody needs to hear every time. If you have the opportunity and would like to ask more questions, you give us an email at questions@godwhy.com.